Welcome. I am Elizabeth Coco Ann, and this is Fern. Welcome to Embodied Astrology. We're here to talk about what's going on with the new moon coming up on the 17th in Virgo. And I'm going to give it directly over to Fern. And so you can tell us, that's Azul, what's been moving or what's about to be moving in the cosmos.
Yeah, and I love it how Azul just jumped right up there in front of the camera because Virgo is the sign that rules small animals like cats and dogs. So I feel like or Azul was introducing our Virgo new moon video today. I love that. So we have Virgo new moon on Thursday, September 17th at 4 a.m. Pacific time. And I'm going to pop up a chart for that so we can take a look. And here we go. So
That's pretty.
go ahead. Sorry, Coco.
I said that's very beautiful, the shape it makes.
Yeah, lots of interesting, uh, aspects. And this new moon is a different new moon than we've had this year in a lot of ways. And the first thing that stands out to me is the very strong earth emphasis. This is one of the first lunations that is got more of a harmonious relationship with the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter group that we've been experiencing all year in Capricorn. So we've got a trine relationship between the sun and the moon conjunct. The sun and moon conjunct is always a new moon. And exact trine, you can see here, 25 degrees of Virgo, the sun and the moon, exact to 25 degrees and 27 minutes of trine to Saturn, and a 3-degree trine to Pluto at 22 degrees of Capricorn. And then a bit of a looser trine, but I'm going to include it just because it's part of this group, to Jupiter. So I want to spend some time talking about that Earth energy that we see. And also this new moon is going to showcase Saturn in another way, which is that Saturn is turning to direct this at the end of the month. So we're kind of really feeling that Saturn in Capricorn. And also because it's squaring Mars and Aries retrograde. And that's going to be exact again sometime in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have the exact retrograde square from Mars retrograde in Aries to Saturn direct in Capricorn. So I want to talk about all of that, and just want to see if you have any particular thoughts or questions or anything before we dive into that a little bit.
Not yet.
Okay. So, as always, I'll be stopping and checking in with you. But so Earth energy, Earth trine. We have had so much dynamic, earth-shattering, transformational, big energies, and a lot of the lunations and the full moons, new moons that we've experienced so far in 2020. This particular new moon, with its focal point on Virgo, it really brings up the themes of day-to-day living, of how we are maintaining our bodies, our health, our day-to-day routines, the work that we do in the world, our relationship to how we serve. What is nourishing? What is nourishing on the physical plane? How are we taking in nourishment? How are we letting go of what's not essential? In the body, Virgo has to do with the digestive system. And so I always like to think of that as, with the digestive system, the body pulls in the nutrients and the energy, and then it excretes or lets go of or releases what is waste, what can't be used. And that's basically Virgo's job, is to figure out what's useful, what can be turned into something, and what needs to be let go of. So similar energy in some ways to Scorpio, but without the really intense emotional content that Scorpio carries. There's a much more pragmatic, practical, nuts and bolts, cut and dried, what's going to be useful. And Virgo brings also a sense of devotion to the table of what are we devoted to, and Virgo is known as a sign of service, but if you take that a little bit deeper, when you're really serving someone that you love, there's an element of devotion to it. So I like to bring that piece in when I bring in the Virgo energy. So before I get into the trine and that relationship to Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, just want to see if that's sparking anything for you.
Yeah, but I think it's sparking has more to do with the trine. And so I'll add after you add that piece.
All right. So a trine is a triangle, 120 degrees, and it has a feeling of energy moving and flowing. There's no, although as well as doing a square on the hand right now, there's a little more tension going on.
Okay, I'm trying to hold on. Let me see if I can get this just situated a little more.
Okay.
The cat, I'm kind of in his spot, and so I apologize in advance. He just woke up from a nap and is really spunky, so I apologize in advance. So anyways, a trine is a harmonious relationship. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so feeling yeah. Okay, so there's trine happening. There's a flowy, easygoing, but almost, I mean, trines have a reputation of being a really positive aspect, and they absolutely can be. But like anything, there's also challenging sides to a trine, which is a little bit of a paradoxical statement, and I want to explain that a little bit. So a trine is when there are planets that are in a kind of relationship where they move together well. Usually, almost always, they're in the same sign, or not same sign, same element, but not always. In this case, we absolutely have planets in the same element, and they are moving together in a way that is comfortable, that feels supportive of each other, and has a forward motion, almost like a wheel. So Virgo and Capricorn, both earth sign, both very concerned with the physical, tangible, 3D reality. And Capricorn has more of a feeling of long-term goals, sustainability over the long term. Virgo has a sustainable angle as well, but more in the day-to-day. So there is this calling at this new moon for us to begin to look at what can we do in this physical, 3D, practical, day-to-day maintenance, but also foundation building with a Capricorn element to reconfigure and realign ourselves in the most mundane, grounded, detailed way with reality as it is right now.
Yep. And this is something when I was feeling out our talk, as I was doing my morning practices today, I was drawn to, in a very Virgo way, revisit some of my foundational wishes and dreams from my world and the world. And there's an element of purification, of shedding, that which we are inevitably shedding, everybody in different ways right now with what's going on in the world. even the basics, like where I'm at right now has extremely hazardous air. So I had to pick up and go to my parents that has a good air filter. Well, that shifts my Virgo habituated and taking care routines, but I could quickly switch in. It's there's this adaptability that's really needed as we're reconfiguring so deeply in so many facets of our lives. And so I was finding this need to adapt to, like, quickly adapt to taking care differently and to reconfiguring, like, what am I taking care of and why? Like, to really revisit the foundational pieces of what I'm taking care of, why, and what my dreams and intentions are, knowing that everything's reconfiguring.
Yes. Yes, and that's again what I am coming back to that word of devotion. You know, what is that you feel devoted to, that you're going to serve, and that, you know, part of the relationship with Virgo with the small animals is that, you know, in a sense, especially in the more modern times, we serve our animals and, you know, they serve us as well. But, you know, I feed my dog, I walk my dog, I make sure that she's healthy. And because I'm devoted to her, you know, in a certain sense. And there's other things in my daily reality that I do devote my time and my energy and my care and my love to. And to me, that's where Virgo comes in. So because oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, this is more of a larger umbrella. I like, I love astrology. These, and not just these, I love astrology. One reason is because I know that if in this time I have a lot of power, I have a lot of ability to create change if I want to, by practicing Virgo tendencies. And so if I reframe of, oh, I can actually create change in my career's trajectory, or my romantic relationship trajectory, by focusing more on bringing deliberacy into the honoring ritual of mundane activities.
Hmm. And I'm really glad you said that, because this new moon in particular, because is ripe for that, because of the trine to Pluto and Saturn. But Pluto is a planet of transformation and power and really shifting in an alchemical way what was into what was in the past into what is now and what will be. So having that support, that trine aspect from the sun and the moon to Pluto and Saturn, it's very much a time of movement. But it may not be big, dramatic, you know, earth-shattering movement necessarily. It may be much more in the practical, tangible sense.
And that was something I was guiding, I was leading a meditation earlier today, and it was all taking place deep within. So we can go anywhere with our attention. And lately I've been exploring what it's like to go deeper in than I've ever been within me. And in that, in going deeper in, then allowing myself from that spot, and this is kind of an aside, but it relates, allowing myself to bring up what saddens me in the world. So the fires, I mean, I could name like 50 things right now that are saddening to me in the world. I'd bring them up when I was deep, deep, deep within, to let them reconfigure from the inside out as I was resting and taking care of my body. And to me, metaphorically, that's a bit about what we're doing with this reconfiguration in Capricorn with Pluto and Saturn right there, and Mars coming up and squaring it, and Jupiter. That's such a deep reconfiguration, and it's a very needed reconfiguration. But it's scary because the outside world is changing in unpredictable ways that really affect me. So I need to build in the self-care, build in the cozy, intentional, alchemical self-care to change my orientation and also my ability to reimagine the world.
Yes. Yeah, that all sounds really good. And actually, you brought up the Mars and Aries square, this the Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, and that is also part of this new moon story because Saturn is going to be going direct for the first time in many months on September 29th. So we've got about almost 2 more weeks, but this new moon features Mars retrograde squaring Saturn about to go direct. So although we do have this earthy, grounded, lovely, practical kind of flow happening with the Earth trine, we have some tension there that's ongoing, for the next couple of months as Mars retrograde kind of triggers all of those Capricorn planets. And that is the tension that is going to be resolved over this next couple of months through how we focus our action and through our internal work of kind of revisiting, old ways of dealing with anger and change and revolution, and begin to explore new potentials for how we might bring that kind of energy out into the world.
Mhm. And it seems like a very prime time to be very clear about what we're grieving, of what we're, I mean, as simple as the forests up and down this area of the world that is our main home, of the ecosystems, that air quality, like, or virus, or a job or a relationship. What am I mourning? What are you mourning? What are we letting go of? Because this whole process is involving so much loss. And in the long run, if I take an intentional leap of faith and imagine this reconfiguration bringing about something more amazing than we could ever dream up, that's a leap of faith, then I can trust in this letting go process, this rearranging the forest fires, the politics up, I can trust in the process a little bit more and allow the letting go to happen, which I think is an important part in the process, both with Virgo, because Virgo has a lot to do with trimming down,
Mm-hmm.
um, and Capricorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the Mars squaring Pluto. So, there's a large part of grief that is anger. And so the Mars and Aries square Pluto, the planet of death and loss, that's really going to be bringing up, both the sadness and the anger of how things are changing, and they're not necessarily in our control. And I do feel that Virgo piece, though, offers some kind of an antidote just in terms of, how can you still appreciate and maintain and take care of what you do have around you. So for me, with, I live in Northern California, you're on the West Coast also in Washington, and we both are really experiencing the impact of the fires, from the smoke to just the energetic, trauma to, possibly having to be evacuated at any moment. And one thing that's really been helping me is to take my daily herbs, my lung herbs, my nervine herbs, and do that kind of Virgo practical bodily maintenance. It gives me a focal point. It gives me some grounding. It makes me feel connected to the earth and my plants that I'm growing. I can harvest those and make tea out of them. And that's my Virgo medicine that I'm doing now.
And so Virgo medicine ideas it's cooking, so in the preparation of food, and doing so in a really intentional, in a way where you intentionally aren't multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
You're instead being very present with the food in front of you and its richness and its sustenance. um, bedtime rituals, so bathing rituals, cleaning rituals. I'm adding the word ritual just anytime it's anytime we imbue presence and intention in a moment, then in my book it becomes a ritual or a ceremony, so to say. It's how can I, in even just picking up this glass, how can I bring awareness to the nourishment of water, that I have clean water and access to that, knowing that in my presence and appreciation of what I'm doing, I'm building that internally. I'm building that in who I am, and that's building that place of comfort in who we are, because I'm part of the puzzle. It's like we're all connected in this. And so the more of us that are taking time to feel nourished and intending that to all facets of us, the more that we're taking care
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. And one thing I want to just, before we close, I want to make sure that I do mention we talked about the trines, between the Earth trine, talked a little bit about Mars squaring Pluto and Saturn and some of the grief and the tension that can come up from that. There's also an aspect that isn't always included when we look at, these charts, but I do feel like it's important to bring up, and that's we've talked about it before in these videos, the quincunx. And there is also a quincunx between Mars in Aries and the Virgo planets, the sun and the moon. And so that quincunx is the kind of hard to understand aspect. It's like the two energies, Aries and Virgo, they don't really match up. Aries is that fiery passion and action and will and anger and courage and risk taking, and Virgo is that kind of steady, practical, service, devotion, discernment feeling. So those two, that earth and fire, it takes a little bit of work for them to make connection with each other. But part of the story of this new moon cycle, which goes on for the next 6 months, is finding points of connection. So I'm seeing even like, the street activist who's going out and protesting, around Black Lives Matter or climate change or all the many things that are protestable right now. And that's that Mars and Aries. And then, the street medic who's got the herbs to help heal and soothe and keep that activist energy going, because that can burn out. And without that fiery passion, the Virgo gets a little bit stuck or over detailed or too worried and anxious to really create any kind of change.
Mm-hmm.
So those two need to find some kind of meeting point during this cycle also.
Mm-hmm. And Mars and Aries, we would benefit from being aware of our angry shadow projections. So the fire in us, it's something to have caution around. I just dealt with this at a meeting with somebody that was so frustrating for me. I felt like we were just, and so I was trying to do it in the meeting, whereas I was trying to give this person the benefit, way more benefit of the doubt, like way more. What am I not hearing quite right? Or what am I? So there's space for people to have error. And then if somebody's really bothering me, that I take that as a sign for me to do shadow work, which means owning my projection. So if I'm super angry at anyone, that's a sign of something in me, either at a personal level, familial level, or collective level, that's ready to be healed. So to take it at a collective level is a powerful place, that so-and-so over there is just a representation of something that's wounded within us all. then that allows for me to, even as simple as write it down and ask for universal support in healing this, or bringing it to my bathtub and lighting a candle in honor of this specific issue I'm moving, that I don't want to move through here. I want to move through here, through the subconscious workings.
Yes, yes. And I think that goes really well what you're suggesting with the Mars retrograde, because we're doing a lot of work on that internal feelings of anger and frustration, and also the Virgo energy, because Virgo is about, inner work and self-introspection and kind of that maintaining a center in ourselves, that wholeness that Virgo also brings.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like
Yep.
that.
And I think one last, I don't know how long we've been on, but the you can find different ways to move your own fire. So for me, really being physical,
Mm-hmm.
I watched the class. And I do that, and I'll kind of do what the instructor's doing online, but I'll really make sure I'm moving my own fiery energy so I get that output, even though right now we're like super trapped in houses, because we can't go actually outside. And so it needs to still move.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one way of moving fire.
Yes, no, I agree. And that also goes with the Virgo piece of day-to-day routines. So incorporating movement, physical movement in a safe way, because the Mars and Aries retrograde can also sometimes manifest in people, needing so much to express some of that tension that they, have hurt themselves. So moving very with much awareness and, a careful kind of intention.
Yep. Looking out around you before you punch things.
Yeah.
And always having a lot of water rituals are perfect for retrograde Mars and Aries. Much fire too. So you can just take note in day-to-day practices as, do I need fire to move fire, or do I need to quench my thirst? It's
And also earth practices too. Like there may be something that needs to be buried in the ground and released to the earth, or something that needs to be planted, or that kind of
Mhm. Mhm. Sowing seeds again.
yeah.
Yay.
All right.
Okay.
So that's what we got for you for this new moon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And until next time. Mwah.
Mhm.